Hey everyone, Complex back with another video, and today something extra special happened, and at Gamescom Opening Night Live, we got a development doc from BioWare. That's right, they showed us a little bit of DA4, they chatted about DA4, they showed us some concept art, and all this fantastic stuff, and I am just so excited, and my conspiracy theory lore brain is just kind of going at all cylinders, and I'm so excited to see what DA4 actually brings us. But because we got all of this new information and, like I mentioned, concept art, stuff like that, I thought we'd do a little bit of a discussion about what we saw. Now, instead of walking through the video with you and kind of pausing and talking about different things, I wanted to talk about concepts that were within this doc. There's a lot of overarching themes, such as people I think might be companions, different things with like the Wardens and Titans and stuff like that. So we're gonna go through it point by point, and well, let's just dive on into it. First up, Tevinter. That's right. I fully believe that a lot of these screenshots of concept art that we're seeing is Tevinter. It was alluded to at the end of Trespasser, so Tevinter looks beautiful. The concept art that we're seeing for the exteriors and interiors of the city look like it's going to feel as like almost gritty and dirty in a lot of ways that we've come to believe Tevinter to be. It looks like we're going to see a lot of the upper echelon and then the slave trade that they have within that. We're going to see a lot of higher noble class. We're going to see the magisters, and then we're also going to see the seedy underbelly of it. And I, for one, cannot wait to see how that all ties together within the story. Now, the one thing I was really impressed with, and I hope that this comes across once we get into the game, is the exterior shot that we saw of the larger city. There was a lot of verticality to it. It had that Arabian Nights kind of desert city vibe to it, where it's a lot of almost winding paths, and it kind of goes up this trajectory so you can get to like the big castle at the top. And I really hope that within game we get to explore that and see where that goes, because that can make for a lot of interesting, not only narrative moments with characters, but narrative moments for ourselves within role-playing the game. Now, next up, let's talk about dwarves. We saw dwarven deep roads, we saw different dwarven art, and we saw what looked like possibly a Tig. There's a lot here to debate. There are a lot of different things that we kind of know about the deep roads as far as Tevinter goes, and there's a lot of things that we don't know yet, which leaves a lot of room for BioWare to expand on the lore. And then taking that one step further, I personally am obsessed with Titans. I think the Titan lore that we learned in Descent and just overall within the game is very fascinating, and I think it ties into a lot more than meets the eye. The Titans not only connect to the Dwarfs and to why they don't have magic anymore or any connection to the Fade, but it also explains a lot of things as far as the ancient elves go, especially the Venatori, how they came to power, and just why elves have such a deep-rooted natural inclination to magic. So I do desperately hope that as we kind of dive into DA4 and start to learn more, we start to see that everything that we had learned in that Descent DLC comes into play here and just gets expanded upon. They even went as far, interestingly enough, as to show a creature that was very almost looked like a golem but not, and it was like a creature kind of in the stone, and it was lit up blue, and as we know, Lyrium is a Titan's blood, so it almost stands to reason that maybe that was a Titan, or maybe that was some kind of ancestor of a Titan or something potentially related to them. The other interesting thing is that they had one of the voiceover actors mention that a good kind of rumble, and I will quickly play you that clip here.
No, it's okay. That's the good kind of rumble.
And the important thing to note about that is one of the reasons that the Descent DLC happened and we went to the deep roads is because there was a lot of earthquakes happening, and also the dwarves themselves have a stone connection. So the rumbles, the stone talking to them, stuff like that, that all kind of fits within that Dwarven Titan, learning more about the Blight and everything like that lore. So I very much hope that that gets expanded upon in DA4. Next up, I think the venatori are back. There was one particular piece of concept art that looked like what was almost an upgraded version of the venatori armor that we had seen. It kind of had the same geometric lines to it, same color palette. It looks like they have more abilities, and within that piece of concept art, it also looked like we saw red lyrium being either shot at somebody or them shooting red lyrium at somebody. I don't know particularly what it was, but the cool thing is it was it looked to me, at least, like the venatori, and then it looked like they were using abilities or being able to harness magic differently than what we know of. Now, we know the venatori originated in Tevinter and that they were Corypheus's lackeys, for a really quick sum up of them. So I am very much hoping that the venatori play a bigger part in this than meets the eye. It was always weird that in DAI, the venatori came and they did so much damage and then just kind of left when Corypheus died, and like that was all we had heard of them. So I very much hope to see a expansion upon the venatori and almost see them kind of like a plague within Tevinter, if at all possible. That would be really cool, but it looks like they're probably back. Now let's talk about companions. I think that they actually gave away a lot more in regards to our future companions than meets the eye. There is at the end of the doc a kind of big piece of concept art where you see a whole bunch of people standing together. I think that those are that's us plus our companions, which is really exciting. It looks like we're potentially getting a female mage. It looks like we're going to get a female canary. It looks like possibly a male canary without horns, which is really interesting because we haven't seen that since Sten and DAO. Or it could potentially be maybe an older ancient elf. We don't know who exactly they are. There is also looking like maybe a female rogue that uses a bow and or a crossbow, and then a few others within that. So it looks like we're gonna get an array of companions, and I for one am very excited to meet them and to kind of see what kind of family we can make with them, kind of like what we've done with past games. Now, the really interesting thing within the doc too is that one of the game devs mentioned that there is reactivity with your choices. So you could have companions potentially die in this game. Your choices are going to matter, which I for one would love, because I feel like we really haven't seen that in a very, very, very long time from BioWare. The last time I really felt like we could like lose a companion was either Mass Effect 3 or DA2, depending on which games you played most recently. So I am very much hoping that we get that kind of weight behind a lot of decisions, especially when it comes to our companions. Now, last up that I wanted to talk to you about today, and this is the chunk monster of everything that was in this less than 5-minute video, and that is the Wardens. That was not at all what I thought we were going to get when it came to DA4. I did not think the Wardens were going to play as big of a part as it's almost feeling like they're going to. The way that things kind of left off in DAI, I personally was a little uncomfortable with overall. But it seems like they might be resurrecting them from the proverbial dead, if you will. We saw two different pieces of concept art that looked like a gray warden, either fortress or structure. There was one that was just a tower with a griffin, and you saw that, and then you saw another kind of big fortress, and that had the exact same architecture as the tower did. So it's all going to tie together. Maybe we're going to go to Weistop. Maybe there is a different Grey Warden fortress near Tevinter that we don't know about. Maybe it's something closer to home from the original game. Maybe we pick up ourselves some Wardens and then head over to Tevinter. I don't know what's going to happen. But the other thing is, when they were showing off a few different combat things, they used a Warden for that, which was really interesting. And you actually had the blue shield of the different Wardens kind of in front of that Warden, which was interesting. Not to mention, one of the other voiceover actors that they mentioned, they showcased rather, said for the Wardens. So, I mean, there's Wardens in this. The other interesting thing is that they used the main soundtrack song from DAO at one point, like kind of halfway through, they switched over to that. I personally don't see that as a coincidence. There's really no reason to bring back the DAO theme song unless, well, we're dealing with Wardens pretty heavily. Now, the other thing with that, though, is it ties into the whole kind of Corypheus and the Blight thing. It ties into Solus and what he wants to do. It ties into the Dwarves. It ties into the Titans. It ties into the Deep Roads. Like, the Wardens do have to come back for this game, in my opinion, just because there is so much there. There is so much on the table, and I'd love to see them kind of handle it. Now, the other super interesting piece of concept art that I saw was this, you saw like a big table. It almost looked like your table from Skyhold, if I'm being honest. And up top in the rafters, you saw different flags, and then a lot of them looked like the griffins that you see for the Grey Wardens. And if you look outside in that piece of concept art, it almost looks like you're in the Fade or something like that. There was like a green vortex, something like that, and somebody fighting outside. That's really interesting. So whether or not what Solus wants to do comes to pass or not, it looks like the Grey Wardens are going to play a very big part in the next game. Now, before we wrap this up, let's quickly touch base on a few things that were kind of sort of obvious, but we should probably touch base on just for good merit. First up, there was an underwater piece of concept art that, well, hopefully that means we can finally go underwater in this game. That would actually be really cool. And in that piece of concept art, you saw what was definitely Dorian, Isabella, and then one of the common kind of female rogues that we saw in a lot of other pieces. And I personally am thinking that she could possibly be one of our companions down the road. Next up, they mentioned Solus. I mean, he's going to probably more than likely be a gigantic part of this game. One of the pieces of concept art that they showed for him, he had this really cool wolf. I low-key want to make like, I want a wolf. So BioWare, if you're listening at all, could I have a wolf too? Secondly, though, it was interesting that one of the devs had mentioned that people either love or hate Solus, and some of them are somewhere in the middle. And they actually mentioned that some of them want to kiss him kind of thing. So hopefully for my Solus Mancers, there is some kind of something for you guys within that. It is nice to see, though, that they acknowledge that there are some people that absolutely despise him, some people that love him, some people that want to romance him and kind of want that resolved. So I am very curious to see how that all ties in together. Some things that were interestingly missing from this, though. You saw no concept art, no nothing from any of the companions besides Dorian and Isabella that we've had in past games. So there was nothing kind of hinting at your Warden that I saw. There was nothing hinting at like Varric or anything like that. So we could very well be on our own. And as Patrick Weeks had mentioned, you're kind of more the underdog in this. What happens when you don't kind of come into a situation with all the power? So you're not going to have the might of the Inquisition behind you necessarily, the might of the Grey Wardens, or you're not going to have the noble title that Hawk ended up earning within the last 2 acts of DA2. So this could be a very different experience for us going down the road. And I, for one, am very excited to see how they kind of work that into a plot so you still feel like a hero without necessarily having the might or the power of a bigger organization behind you. But y'all, that is going to be it from me today. Hopefully you found some of this interesting and are just as excited for DA4 as I am. Now, as we start to get more and more news on Dragon Age 4, I promise that I will kind of keep you updated and we'll chat about what we see. And leading up to DA4, definitely expect some more lore videos and just kind of topics being talked about to get us all ready to dive into what should hopefully be a very fun experience. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your night and or day, depending on where you are in the world, and I will catch you next time. Bye, guys!